everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. And welcome to my first writing vlog in 4 months. And unlike last week, this will actually be a real writing vlog. As you may know from the video I posted last week talking about my writing plans for the rest of 2026, I have a bit of a deadline. In fact, I have given myself 45 days out of the next 55 days to finish draft 3 of Seekers of Empyrean, which is my modern world urban fantasy about a young woman with a rare magical ability who is recruited by a secret government agency to hunt down a dangerous fugitive in exchange for help solving her mother's mysterious disappearance. I am about 15,000 words into draft 3, the vast majority of which I will be keeping. I think I'm deleting like the last 100 words to make room for how I'm going to finish out this really troublesome scene that I had some problems with when I went on hiatus. And I do project that the manuscript will end between 90 and 100,000, meaning I have 75 to 85,000 more words left to write. In the interest of being conservative, I have basically mathed that out to being about 2,000 words a day. So today is Monday, June 8th, the first day of this fast drafting 45-day writing thing. I'm hesitant to call it a challenge because really it's just being on deadline. I am getting started a little bit late, which does not spell great news for me because today was my first day back at work after last week's vacation. And while I didn't do anything for my vacation, I was just staying at home. I did get some news over the break about some more changes that are coming to my workplace, probably in about a month. And I woke up this morning, it was probably close to 5 a.m. and I accidentally thought about the work situation and then I couldn't go back to sleep. So I am pretty tired. I usually don't get up while my kids are out of school until 7. So I'm not doing great, but I do want to start off my first day back at writing strong, especially since last week when I tried to write, it didn't go so great. But I'm here, I've got my computer set up, I am in the right mindset, and I've also kind of determined what I need to accomplish today in order to meet my 2,000 word goal. Like I said, I'm gonna finish out this problem scene. Should not be more than 500 words, probably between 300 and 450. That's kind of my guesstimate to finish out this scene. Maybe even less than that really, but we'll see. Like I said, I've been having problems figuring out how to close it out. That's the end of that scene. The next scene is something that I can borrow heavily from draft 2, except at the beginning. I do need to rewrite a big portion of the beginning half. The last maybe 2/3, half of it, I can borrow pretty heavily from. That scene is over 2,000 words, so if I finish out the following scene, I will have more than my 2,000 words. But this does beg the question that I've been kind of wondering about since getting back on the wagon, and that is when I started draft 3, I had a process where I was writing a scene and then going through it and doing just kind of a very basic edit through where I was doing minor line level changes and cutting out like filtering words and things of that nature, just doing a very minor cleanup just so it felt a little bit more clean and a little bit more streamlined. With how tired I am and with how late it is close to 9:30. I'm a little bit worried about how long it's going to take, especially since the scene that I'm having to get back into has been giving me so much trouble. I think it's probably a good idea to continue the process that I had before, if possible. So I would really like to just draft this next like 1,500 words or so, what I anticipate having to rewrite pretty quickly, and then getting in what I need to copy over from draft 2, and then using the rest of the time to do that edit pass. So that way I can get my 2,000 words, but also feel good about it and like it's complete and done, and then I can move on to the next scene. I am not going to prattle on anymore. I'm just going to sit down at my desk. I'm going to get my little timer started, and I'm hopefully going to finally beat into the ground this writer's block that has been a source of frequent consternation since January 31st. Okay, really quickly, it is now 10:30 and I have been working for about an hour and I have gotten 375 words. I did work through that spot of writer's block, so I'm just happy to be past that. And I have actually also edited through that scene, done my quick pass. It's a really short scene, only about 1,400 words, so I'm actually going to move it into chapter 5. Makes chapter 5 a little long. Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this scene yet. I finally was able to work through that bit of writer's block, that kind of difficult spot. Ended up being about, again, 375 added to the end. So now I'm going to move on to the next scene. Like I said, I am going to have to rewrite probably like the first 1,000 words of that scene, and then I will be able to get into portions that I can reuse from draft 2. I am going to get right back into it. I am tentatively, casually doing a reverse ladder sprint. So that 375 words and the edit pass took all of my 48-minute sprint and part of the 36. It did take a lot of time and a lot of effort, but again, I am just so happy to finally be out of that part. So I am moving on to the next section, and fingers crossed that I can write 1,000 words and then copy 1,000 words. So here we go. Okay, so I know strictly speaking, it's a little early to start cheating, but I fear I'm cheating because, listen, my partner decided he wanted to come to bed much earlier than normal. And to be fair, he has recently changed jobs and he is having to go into the office much earlier than before. So staying up past midnight is no longer an option for him. It is likely that going forward, writing in the bedroom from 9 to 11:30 is not going to be feasible, which is why I've changed locale. And then my stomach got upset, and it is now almost 11:30, and I pretty much got one paragraph into the next scene before I was interrupted by both of those things. So I'm gonna do what any self-respecting writer would do in this situation, and that is copy over the words that I need from the second draft into the third draft in order to technically hit the word count goal and save the actual writing part for tomorrow. Basically what I did was I went into the next scene. I had like that paragraph that I said, and then I went into the second draft and just found where I want to pick up from. And tomorrow's work will just have to be connecting the two together and then doing an edit pass to make sure that everything that follows still makes sense with the new stuff. And so it could be that I take away some of these words tomorrow and have to make them up. I wasn't counting the words that I was copying over. I was just looking for where I wanted to start, and it just so happened to put me at almost exactly 2,000 words, just over at like 2,054 or something like that. So new words about 460. That's where I ended up. But that's third draft life, isn't it? You know, it's not always going to be brand new words. I'm tired. I don't feel good. I gotta go to work again tomorrow. So while not the most successful of writing days, I will say that being able to get past that one trouble spot, huge load off my mind. Huge. And to be fair, this next part that I have to write, I do have like semi-planned out. I got a big idea for it back when I was brainstorming how to fix the draft. And so I took some copious notes. And so I should be able to get into those notes and be like, oh yeah, this is how I wanted to proceed with this scene, and then write it and then connect it to the next section and then be able to move on from there. I do think it'll probably be between 600 and 800 words that I'm adding to the scene, and then I can move on. In fact, a lot of the next couple of chapters are going to be copied. I'm rearranging some things, so some things will need to be rewritten a little bit. Not a little bit. Like, there's one scene where I'm changing like one of the characters out for someone else in that particular moment, and so that person is just going to kind of approach the topic in a different way than the original character. Anyway, I would say like a good chunk of the next 3 or 4 chapters are going to be a lot of copying, which is good because that'll help ease me into getting back into the draft and getting back into it. I'm not going to need new words for like another like 4 chapters, like brand new, like completely new scenes and things. So I think that's good. I think that's fine. You know, like I said, that'll help kind of get me back into the headspace of the characters and kind of get me rolling again on what I want to do. So I'm not going to be mad about it. I'm certainly not going to make excuses for it, unlike what I am doing tonight, which is definitely what I would consider cheating. Needs must. And on that note, good night. Hey y'all. So it is now Tuesday evening, and I have actually just finished my writing for the day, except I regret to inform you that I did have to cheat again. I just got started a little bit late. It was like 9:45 when I finally realized what time it was and had to turn off Honkai Star Rail. And then I did struggle a little bit to figure out how I wanted to connect the part of the scene that I copied over from draft 2 with the new stuff. So it did take me a little bit to get going. I did add like 966 new words. And then I copied over a big chunk of the next chapter to technically hit my words for the day. Tomorrow, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to probably get started early. I may even start on my lunch break. I have like half of the current chapter and then half of the next chapter to read and edit through, both like for the line level stuff, the editing pass, and also to make sure that everything still lines up with the new context. And that's going to be a big chunk of time because it's like that section is almost 3,000 words by itself. And then I will move into a scene that existed in the first 2 drafts, but is now becoming, it's hard to explain. That scene is basically becoming a mashup of 2 different scenes. So one character from one scene is now delivering the information that another character in a later scene is delivering. And I'm just mashing it up for efficiency and also to give this other characters something more to do, because in the previous iterations he wasn't really doing that much. Yeah, tomorrow might be a day where I don't actually hit the 2,000 words, but I'm already making excuses. That's not good, but I'm kind of thinking that it's okay to not necessarily hit the words as long as I'm moving through words. So editing through 3,000 words should count, right? In addition to whatever I have to add to the end of the scene. But like I said, I think yesterday, so much of this current section that I moved into today is going to be taken from the previous drafts. This section is just going to be really, really efficient in terms of like copying over and just doing quick edits to make sure everything is still good and then changing what needs to be changed. So in a way that's good. I'm going to be moving through the chapters really, really quickly. With the stuff that I copied over but have not edited through yet, I did hit exactly 19,000 words, just to give you an idea of how much I'm copying. I was at 14,500 when I started yesterday. Again, I anticipated that this stuff wouldn't change that much. And that is going to do it for tonight. I will see y'all tomorrow. Hello again. I am once again sorry to be filming in this ugly light, but I am much too tired to mess with my actual camera lights. Anyway, it is now quite late. It is almost midnight on Wednesday. And today will be the first day that I do not get 2,000 words. And it's only the 3rd day. So what happened was earlier today on my lunch break, I started my read through of what I wrote yesterday with the goal of like making sure everything flowed really nicely into the part that I copied over from draft 2. I realized really, really quickly that I kind of hated how I left the previous chapter and led into the new chapter. It was just not my best work, which is not totally surprising. That was the part that I was really having the major block on. And I pushed myself to get through it so that I could just break the seal and keep writing. But yeah, it was bad stuff. It was not good. Because I want to make this draft pretty clean and consistent and not need to do any major rewrite, I would not let myself move on until I got it right. And unfortunately, that took me like an hour this evening. I did start almost right at 9 o'clock, but it did take me actually probably close to an hour and a half to make sure that the ending of the previous scene led well into the next scene. Because the problem was essentially, I think I mentioned this, but essentially the main character is getting blasted with 3 big reveals. And originally what I had wanted to do was allude that everything she thought she knew was not true, and then end the scene, and then start the next scene with her going, I can't believe I just learned this information. It's contradictory to everything else I had thought was true. And have her be thinking about it while also moving on to the next sequence of events. Just kind of adhering to that in late out early scene writing advice. And also because it just felt like redundant to have her be told the information and then have her be processing the information in the very next scene. Does that make sense? But the way that I wrote it yesterday was I didn't feel like the everything you thought was a lie like moment was punchy enough to end the chapter on. And so I ended up just doing a partial reveal of one of the things that she needed to learn and then going into the next chapter and where she was going, oh, I learned all 3 of these things. And when I was reading over that earlier today, I was like, it just didn't feel clear enough that she learned those things at the same time or in the same conversation that she learned the first thing. Is this making sense? Are you following along? It just didn't feel clear enough. Like I could see a scenario where a beta reader or an actual reader would be like, wait, why do we think that this is true? How does she know that? Or like, where did she get that impression? So I just needed to make it more clear that there were several things that she learned in that conversation. It just happened off page. Does that make sense? So like I said, it took me more, probably between an hour and a half to really feel secure. I rewrote it probably 3 or 4 times. And then I went into the next chapter and rewrote the beginning of that 3 or 4 times just to make sure it was all really super cohesive. And then I did an edit pass, like a prose line level edit pass. I think I had been doing this the whole time in all the chapters I had written thus far up until the one that I did finished yesterday. But what I do is I read it fully out loud to myself. And that really helps me with flow and finding words that I've used multiple times and phrases that, I may have relied on too many times, and hearing like, oh, I've got too many adverbs and things like that. And so that does usually take a little bit of time as well. So I got all the way through chapter 7. And then I was feeling really in a flow and really like I wanted to do the next 1,600 words as well, which is the part of chapter 8 I copied over from draft 2. But I'm too tired. It's late. I was up late last night. It was probably like 1 o'clock before I finally went to sleep. And then I was woken up early just because my insomnia is bad. And also we have a very lovely conundrum going on right now. I think I mentioned it like all the way back in December in a video where my downstairs air conditioning unit doesn't work. So I have a 2-story house and there is a unit, an AC unit that services just the upstairs vents. And then there's one that services the downstairs vents. But my house is also very open concept where big parts of the downstairs are open to the upstairs. So we are getting airflow from the upstairs vents. The only place that is not the case is in my bedroom. It is not open to the upstairs at all. And of course, with the door closed, airflow is impossible because the downstairs unit isn't blowing air at all, not even warm air, like no air. It is not blowing at all. This has been true since at least October. And we put in a ticket to have them come out and look at it. And the guy came out and looked at the unit and saw that the fan was spinning and said it was fine and didn't even come inside and look at it. We just kind of left it because it was at the time of year where it was getting cooler. And so we didn't really notice the temperature as much. In every other part of the house, we really weren't able to tell most of the time because we were getting enough airflow from the upstairs unit. However, now that we are officially in summer, the Texas heat is really starting to beat down on us. And a couple weeks ago, we had just kind of had enough. And it was like very, very hot in the bedroom. We were like sweating all night. And so we put in another ticket and they came out and fixed the AC. Supposedly. That was maybe 3 weeks ago. But yesterday, as I was making dinner, I realized it was really, really hot. And I went over to the thermostat and it was set to 70, but it was at 77, 76. So I got up and I checked the downstairs vents and they were once again not blowing, but you could hear the air on upstairs. Today I called them back and put in another ticket. We have a corporate landlord, so we don't have like a regular maintenance guy. What happens is we put in a ticket for whatever the problem is, and then they contract it out. So it's hot in this room. I'm comfortable right now, but like when me and my partner and the dogs are in here, it's hot. All of that to say, I'm not really sleeping great or at least I didn't yesterday, and I don't anticipate that changing tonight. But they're going to come out tomorrow and take another look at it. But my fear is that it's the unit itself. I think he replaced like a motor or something last time, but like since it's broken again 3 weeks later, I fear the whole unit will need to be replaced. And if that's the case, like how long is that going to take? It is what it is, though. It has to be fixed. But fortunately, because we live in Texas and, you know, and the heat is so unforgiving, there's like lots of like laws here saying that that landlords have to take care of the AC. That's kind of what's going on. So yeah, today I added only 230 words to what I have written, which is kind of crazy because I guess it isn't totally crazy. The scene that I was editing through today is 600 words fatter than draft 2 because I had to add in the parts where my character was reacting to getting all this information. So it got longer, which is also a problem because I just totaled up the remaining scenes of Act 2, and I do a 6-act structure. So Act 2 is only supposed to go to 40% of the book, and it's the remaining scenes, not counting what the 1.5 scenes I've already got, is 30,000 words. So that's a problem. That would put me at 10,000 words over where I need to be already. That being said, I am changing a lot of the configuration of Act 2. There's just so much to cover. In the 6-act structure, Act 2 is the hero learning the rules of the new world they have entered and learning just how to move through this new situation. So we have Arceli officially going to the secret government agency, learning about how magic works, seeing magic at work, finding out what the power structure is and who her boss is going to be, what the mission actually is, why she's being recruited in the first place. And then she's meeting the rest of the team that she's going to be working with. She's getting trained in magic. And it's just, there's so much in this part. I've got some ideas of where I can trim, but it would be a stretch to say that I'm going to cut 10,000 words out of this part or that I can get it down. At minimum, I need it to be, the total word count be less than 40,000 because I'm already at 20,000, thereabouts. I'm at 19,200 something. Like I said, there is some cutting and some trimming and some rearranging that I'm going to do. I'm consolidating a couple scenes, but some of the stuff that I'm cutting, I'm just moving to later in the act. So I have some concerns. One scene that is on the chopping block is one that I added in draft 2 to kind of showcase magic in action early on, because in draft 1, you really didn't see it at play until Act 4. The 65% mark, when there's a big confrontation with the antagonist. You see it a little bit in her training sessions, but not you don't really have the whole sense of what it can do. And so I added that scene specifically to show Arceli and the reader that this is what magic is capable of. It is a huge breadth of possibility. And it also helps me kind of explore the mechanics of the magic, because if you are new to hearing about Seekers of Empyrean, my magic system is based on physical movement. And so there's unique physical movements and poses that the magic user needs to make in order to successfully cast a spell. And so that scene kind of helped me explore that mechanic a little bit and display it better to the reader because of reasons. Anyway, I would be remiss to cut it unless I was desperate. Because the other thing about Act 2 is it, on paper, is pretty boring. Apart from that scene where she goes down to the training center where a bunch of other experienced agents are just sparring with each other and training and learning new spells and stuff. And she can see what it's all doing. And that is the most exciting thing that happens in this section, because otherwise it's just a girl going through orientation at her new job, right? She goes to the workplace, she meets her new boss, she learns the details of what she's being asked to do, and she gets training. Anyway, so that scene is the main thrust of the action of this entire section of the plot. So cutting it would be, I don't know what it would do. I mean, but apart from showing how the magic works and all of that, it doesn't actively move the plot forward. You know what I mean? I wonder if there's a way to make it move the plot forward. I'm going to sleep on that idea, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Hello. Hi. Today is actually now Saturday afternoon, and yeah, I haven't written the last couple of days, which honestly should not be that much of a surprise, like coming back off such a prolonged break where I wasn't writing or being creative at all, to jump into a word count of 2,000 words a day. Yeah, I'm a little bit bummed, but I'm also not totally surprised that I quickly ran out of energy. So like I got home on Thursday and I just was not feeling, not even just writing, like video games too. I wasn't really feeling up to doing anything. And so I ended up just like laying on my bed and just kind of vegetating. And then yesterday, Friday, it's always hard for me to come home on a Friday evening and be productive. So it is what it is. So logic would dictate then that today on Saturday, I need to write 6,000 words in order to make up for what I didn't do the last couple of days. But I am in an interesting part of the manuscript where I am trying to streamline and kind of winnow down this section of the plot. I think I talked about it in the last clip where it's just really, really dense with exposition. A lot of it is being shifted to just make a little bit more sense and not be as heavy on the info dumping. It's kind of breaking up the info dumping a little bit. And so I don't think I'm really going to go for a word count today. What I would like to do is complete 4 chapters. And a lot of it is going to be copied over from draft 2. I am going to be taking some stuff from draft 1 because it's becoming a fusion of the 2 versions. And I have identified some areas that can be cut. I've decided to keep the big magic scene where it's like kind of revealed how the magic works and what it looks like. It's just the most exciting part of this section, unfortunately. Even though it doesn't really move the plot along. I mean, it does in the sense that Arceli, the main character, visually for the first time sees magic in action apart from her own. It doesn't really do much to move the plot along, but it is like important exposition. And again, it's the most exciting part. Otherwise, it's just Arceli attending a bunch of orientation meetings. That's the other reason I'm trying to streamline this section as much as possible, because like, yes, while it does make sense in the real world, the actual first day of a new job is not that interesting. So I'm trying to toe that line of what is going to break a reader's suspension of disbelief and what is going to bore them out of their minds. You know what I mean? Some of the stuff that is going to be cut from this section is just going to be moved to later, and like the information is going to be delivered by someone like more appropriate. It's just going to be a lot of moving around. There's going to be some new scenes and some new information added, but that's not today. Today is mostly about cutting and pasting kind of and fitting the pieces together in a way that is less word dense and more interesting. I also had the thought yesterday when I was driving home from work that a major plot point right at the end of Act 3, which again, remember, I write in the 6-act structure. So at the end of Act 3 would be around 60%. And it's kind of like, it's not really a catalyst in and of itself, but the information that the main character gets in that scene kind of affects the fight scene that comes later and everything else that, leads into the Dark Night of the Soul. So it's a very important scene. Stop. You do not need to know what's going on with every little sound, I swear. I have been not really struggling with this scene, but I have kind of changed it several times since the original outline. And what it became in drafts 1 and 2, I'm actually not going to do anymore. And I'm actually going to go all the way back to the first iteration of the outline and use that kind of setup. But I was thinking about it yesterday on my drive home, and I was like, I don't know that I have done enough work to justify the setup. And I was starting to get really concerned about it because the information in the scene is very important. Like, I cannot write the rest of the book without it. I was kind of facing down like I'm having to completely rethink how the information is going to be delivered, which would just be, it's just like pulling out like a Jenga brick that just makes everything fall. So fortunately, I was able to think of I just need to foreshadow it better. I just need to kind of build it up a little bit more over the course of the rest of the book so that it doesn't feel as much of a, hey, this kind of came out of nowhere sort of deal. I am going to have to add a little bit in this section, nothing very long, no more than like 300 or 400 words. Yeah, and it was just a reminder that because I didn't really do a full outline of this new version of events, I haven't totally realized or found the plot holes that may arise because of the changes. And so it's just going to be really delicate. And anyway, I'm kind of kicking myself for not doing this the first time. Actually, I'm kicking myself for not doing this 2 years ago, for not coming up with all this 2 years ago, but it is what it is. I'm going to go sit down. I hadn't edited through that last scene that I finished, so I did that already. And then I am working on editing through the first half of chapter 7, I think I'm on. I should probably know this, but I really am just keeping track of things by what is happening in the scenes. So I'm going to finish chapter 7 for sure. I think I'm going to cut completely chapter 8. It is a scene where the main character and like the deuteragonist are kind of just having lunch together, and she's learning more about him and what his role is and what he and how, just more about him. And I think I'm going to cut that, which on the one hand, it's like, yeah, we're losing some exposition about an important character, but I also just have a hard time seeing why I need it. You know what I mean? That being said, I am a notoriously plot-focused writer. I don't deviate, especially in early drafts. I tend not to deviate from what the plot is. I tend to be just like hyper fixated on scenes that move the plot. And so I added this one to draft 2 because I felt like I wasn't taking enough time to explore the world and the other characters. And I needed to explain a few things, but I'm looking back on it now and I'm just like, what do I need this for? Can I summarize this in a couple of paragraphs? Can I have the information be delivered later? Like, do readers really care about how long this other character has been working for the secret government agency and what his backstory is? I mean, he's going to be a POV character in book 2, and so a lot of this is going to get explored then anyway, but like, I probably should tease it a little bit. But like, do I need it right now? Anyway, these are the questions I'm asking myself because I'm just really concerned about how dense this section is. In the 6 act structure, it is act 2, which is learning the rules of the new world, and it's only supposed to be 20% of the plot. Now, I think I talked about this already, but I'm going to say it again just in case. My act 1 is also supposed to be 20%, and it only came out to like 15%. That isn't a surprise because when I open a book, I tend to get just right into it. I don't linger at all. I don't do like an opening snapshot. I get right to the inciting incident, so I'm not really surprised that act 1 was a little bit shorter. So I can use the space that I created in act 1 to fold into act 2 and justify that being a little bit longer, but I am still concerned about the word count. So I would like to get, again, through maybe 4 chapters. And not all of that is going to be new words. I would say like 60% of it would be copied over. I've got wood to chop, so I'm going to go get back to work, and I will check in with y'all in a little while. Hey y'all, it is now much later in the day. It is actually just after 9 o'clock, and I am officially done working for the day. And while I talk to you guys, I'm going to untangle the chain of a necklace that my cat apparently threw on the ground. It was on my vanity, and it got tangled somehow through some sort of dark magic. Can we not? Why are you always like this? Why do you think my computer area is a place to snuggle? No matter where I'm at when I'm working, it's just like, oh, it's time to snuggle. But when I'm sitting down playing video games, nope, can't be bothered. So, legally speaking, I got like 8,500 words. How much of that was copied over from draft 2? Like a good 6,000 of it at least. Probably more if I'm being honest. Actually, I know it's a lot more than that. It's probably closer to 7,000. But anyway, it's fine. Actual words that I either wrote or edited through was more like between 2,000 and 3,000. I finally sat down and edited through that first chunk of the chapter, and then I connected it to the next part that was partially copied from a different scene and partially rewritten. Like I had to kind of do some surgery on it to make it all make sense. But I did not actually finish the scene because I came up onto the portion where I'm adding the foreshadowing I mentioned earlier, and I arrived at it and I realized I didn't know exactly what I wanted to say. My main character is eavesdropping on a conversation and she's just gonna hear snatches of it, and so I just need to figure out like what bits she gets. It's all out of context obviously, and she doesn't even know like what it's about, so I just need to figure out like what sentences she overhears, and how that comes up later. So I decided to go ahead and take a break, but I was kind of dwelling on the changes that I'm making to this section and how efficient is it, because the scene and this chapter ended up running over, especially since I still have more to add than what the original version was. But I got to remember, I'm making it more efficient by cutting out whatever the original conversation was, which wasn't really that important, and putting in something that is important and does kind of flesh out the world and explain some things to the main character that was taken from another scene later on. So I'm definitely streamlining it, but it did end up on paper being longer than the original. So it just got me thinking, how much is this section gonna end up being? Originally, the 4 chapters that I wanted to work on today, I totaled up what they were in draft 2, and they came out to just over 15,000 all told together. And so I wanted to know what it would be, what kind of my ballpark was for where I'm at currently, or what it would be at with this new configuration and this new streamlining. I feel like I'm making this worse. I probably should not be trying to multitask. Which is really annoying because, I wanted to wear this tomorrow. How did she know to knock this specific piece of jewelry off of my vanity and get it tangled? And I know it's her because she... Did I do it? Oh, I got it. I made it easier at least. Oh, here we go. And I know it was her because she likes to jump up on the sink whenever anyone is in the bathroom because she thinks we're going to turn the faucet on for her. And when we don't, she gets butthurt and starts doing stuff like this. Okay, progress. Oh, I'm done. Perfect. Obviously that can't stay there. Anyway, so I started just cutting and pasting the sections of the next couple of chapters. Oh, I guess I did write, even though I wasn't finished with chapter 7, I did write the intro to chapter 8 because this chapter, I deleted a chapter, so it's not a 1-to-1 ratio from draft 2, but originally chapter 8 was one I was going to cut. Yes, I talked about it earlier today, is the one that I was like, I don't know, I should probably cut it, talking about this. It's where she learns all about her coworker and this person that she's going to be close with throughout the book. I just wanted to see how I felt about kind of summarizing their conversation, and I got an idea for it. And so I was like, I better write it down before I forget. And so I quickly did. And then I figured out how I was going to open the chapter and lead into that part. Anyway, so I did do that. So, I wrote the rest of chapter 7 almost to completion, and then the opening of chapter 8. And then I started copying in the sections that I want from draft 2. Where it's currently sitting is just over 9,000 words with the sections I've copied over. So have I cut 5,500 words? I hope so. That would be fantastic. Now, again, some of it is going to come up later, even not that much later, but parts of the information are going to be reintroduced in other scenes. So it's not like those words are completely disappearing, but again, I feel like I'm streamlining it. And then I looked ahead again and I saw a whole almost 2 chapters, which were very short chapters in and of themselves. So it's really only 3,000 words, but still those can be streamlined into one or cut completely or just reworked. I'm cautiously optimistic that I am being way more word efficient, I hope. Now, that being said, I still have to connect all the pieces together. So the word count is not complete. But like I said, I just got to a point where I was like, I'm too tired. My head hurts. So I just don't feel great. And I just want to kind of relax for the rest of the evening. So that's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow I have to work. I'm not going to get into it, but essentially our offices now have to be open on the weekends and everyone has to put in a shift. So I will be working tomorrow morning, Sunday morning from 9 to 1. And I have been trying to utilize that time to get my homework done since I'm usually doing my homework on Sunday mornings anyway. But I just looked and I actually don't have that much. So hopefully that means I can come home and have everything already done and just get some more work done. It's been kind of a weird day. So it just looks funny, like on my spreadsheet. It just looks like I wrote almost 9,000 words. I didn't. I guess I did technically write them, just not today. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll be able to get this act into a more manageable word count. I'm probably going to be well over the 18,000, which would make it 20% of, what did I just say? 18,000, which is 20% of the 90K. I'm probably going to be like closer to 25,000 for this act, but it is what it is. And who knows, I may come across things that I will cut. That was the other thing. I was finding areas to cut info dump and just random stuff like explanations that, while yes, it might be interesting to know, I don't really think that it's necessary. And it's just inflating the word count. And the reason I love revision more than drafting is because I love to cut things. I love to make things really tight and efficient. And so that just made me feel really good. Like, oh yes, I can feel the manuscript getting better just by deleting this sentence. That kind of gave me some energy and something to look forward to as I continue to move through this draft. So that's it from me. I will be working tomorrow, but I will try and get at least chapter 7 finished. It's really not that much left, 300 to 400 words maybe, but I have to brainstorm it. And then connecting the beginning of chapter 8 to the bulk of chapter 8. The bulk of chapter 8 is going to stay the same. It's that magic sparring scene. The bulk of that is going to be the same. So I just need to connect the opening of chapter 8 to the rest of it and just make sure that everything is still kind of in line with what I had done before, and then do an edit through. That would be really nice. But if that's the case, then I could even do chapter 9 as well, which is going to have more heavy rewrites involved. So that's my plan for tomorrow. Let's say that that's my plan for tomorrow. Finish chapter 7, do an edit through, connect chapter 8, and then do an edit through, and then at least start chapter 9. Alrighty. I'm going to stop rambling. Good night. Hello. It is now Sunday night, and I meant to update you earlier, but I didn't. I got up and worked this morning. I got my homework done. I came home. I ate lunch, took a nap, played some video games, and in fact, I did do some work. Are you impressed? Please be impressed. I didn't add any new words though. Actually, the piece that I was struggling with last night, I never really generated any ideas for. And so I ended up leaving it for the moment. I'm going to have to come back to it. I'm going to continue to brainstorm for it just so I can go back and add it. But I didn't want to be held up in progress on that one scene or on that one moment. Not even a whole scene, just a couple of paragraphs really. I have just kind of left it. It's just at the very tail end of chapter 7. I don't need it for the moment to be able to move on. So like I said, I'm going to continue brainstorming and then I'll go back into it and add it later. So what I did today was I stitched together all the pieces of chapter 8 and then did a read through, like line level pass, and then a pass for things like filtering words, which was actually really, really, really useful. I'm shrinking. Because I was apparently when I originally wrote this scene, and most of it was in draft 2, I did a lot of filtering in this scene, way more than I had noticed in other scenes when I was doing my edit passes through. A lot of she watches and she sees and she feels, and I had to do some reworking. What I found as I was working through this scene is that I'm really glad that I ended up deciding to keep it because it's just so good. This is the scene where we just see the magic in action for the first time, like actually like in action, and what it can be used for, what it will be used for going forward, like practically in the books. And while, yes, strictly speaking, it doesn't move a ton of plot forward, it's just so effective in demonstrating the magic. And it's just cool. It's just cool stuff. And it's just the most exciting part of this section, which is probably going to feel a little dry. And so I ended up condensing like a scene where it was like a get to know you with another character into this scene. I just kind of summarized the previous chapter in a couple hundred words at the beginning of this one. And then I streamlined the rest of this chapter, the magic chapter. Ultimately, between the two, I only ended up adding 100 words. So I cut a chapter that was 1,700 words and then only added 100 to the next chapters. So ultimately, I was able to cut 1,600 words, which is awesome. And yeah, like I said, I just feel really, really good about this scene. Just reading through it again, it's just good stuff. It's just really, really good stuff. And it kind of inspired me to skip ahead a little bit and read the chapters where, like, this chapter and scene was about seeing the magic in action. And later on, there's going to be a chapter or maybe two. I'll try to get it down to just one where we learn about like the actual like nitty gritty mechanics of the magic. And I read through that chapter and I was like, man, I was cooking with that stuff. I'm excited about it. And so while yes, it is a lot of info dumping, if I can make it interesting enough, I'm hoping that readers won't mind that it's a lot of info dumping because it's good stuff. If you're new here, haven't been following along with this journey, the magic system that I'm using for this book is based on physical movement. And in draft 2, I really started to drill down into the specific mechanics. I came up with terms, and it's very technical, which I love for an urban fantasy. It's not as, soft magic. It's almost like a hard magic. If you think in sci-fi of like hard science and soft science, this is almost like a hard magic where there are, I hope, clearly defined rules and specific ways that it works in order to cast the spells. Like where you put your feet changes what spell you cast, and how you use your arms changes what spell you cast. And if you're doing something with the left arm, then your right arm means something else. And anyway, I was just like, man, I was on one that day. Or days, I can't remember, when I put that chapter together and actually sat down and thought through all of these mechanics. And I'm actually like kind of excited to be the person that gets to come up with this magic system. So I hope it's good. I'm biased, obviously, but it felt really cool to reread back a good 4 or 5 months after the fact. 6 months. It's been a while since I was drafting draft 2. Anyway, but it was just good, and it made me excited. So I've also looked ahead to the next chapter, which is super condensed. It used to be 2 chapters, and the 2 chapters together were 7,000 words. So what I have currently, I've copied over the portions that I want to keep. I just need to do an edit pass through and make sure everything is streamlined and functions okay. It's not like a Frankenstein's monster of a chapter. But so far, the new chapter, the new version is 3,200 words. So I am saving at least 3,500 there. So I'm looking at between that chapter and the one I cut earlier, like hopefully like 5,000, hopefully. And then once I'm done with that, then I can start looking ahead to, there's going to be a little bit of a transition scene, and then there'll be new stuff to write. So I'll be adding actual new words. I have it edited through chapter 9, pretty sure. I don't have my phone with me, but I think it's chapter 9. I was just about to get started, and then I was distracted by my kids at the end of the night. So that's going to be my goal for tomorrow, is to work through chapter 9 and make sure that is all perfect and good, and then start. My battery's almost dead, and then start drafting through the new stuff, which is exciting. Anyway, my camera battery is almost dead. I left it on by accident earlier. So with that wraps up this first writing vlog in 4 or 5 months. It was really productive. All told, I only wrote more than 2,000 words on 3 days, but on Saturday, yesterday, I copied over 8,500. So really, when you average it all out, it's really like I wrote 2,000 words 6 out of 7 days, right? That's what we're going with. I'm going to check all that off in my checklist. I will call that a successful week, especially considering it's my first week back. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe or consider leaving a comment down below. As always, I haven't the faintest idea what I'll be talking about for you in my next video, but I've got a couple of ideas and I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.